Okay, so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much to StartCon and to the freelancer team for including me. I'm amazed by the scale and the quality of the attendees, the speakers here as well. As far as I'm concerned this weekend, I think this is the center of the startup universe. This is the place to be, so thank you so much for having me. To start with a story, when I first started at BitTorrent, my product manager, can you still hear me? My product manager, Pramod Soke, and I knew that we wanted to apply growth principles to build our products, but we really had no idea how far that would take us. We considered growth to be a holistic part of the product, and the product, as well as all of its engagement mechanics and its acquisition funnels, basically everything as a single delivery device for a core value proposition. And so we drew no lines between what was my department at the time, which was marketing, and product. And looking back, I can see how combining product and growth in the early days, post-product market fit, can make a huge impact on product culture and on outcome. It can make product take ownership over growth metrics and look beyond features to make things happen. It can also make sure that the big strategic decisions, the highest high growth leverage decisions like product, price, features, and what countries we go out to are made with data about the users and the market. It also means then that big leaps in sustainable growth really happen early on in the product's life. You're building growth decisions into the product, and you're building real estate for growth mechanics in from the very beginning. So it's kind of like starting a savings account with a massive deposit. And using this approach, our little team was able to get, as Cheryl said, our installs to 100 million completely organically, and we were able to reach profitability in a little over 2 years. And in April of 2015, when a few of us moved over onto the Windows client team, that's them, we started seeing the same kinds of growth there too. For example, a 40% jump in paid revenue from one experiment. And so this isn't just a mobile thing. It's not a new product thing. This is on a 10-year-old product. And again, this is not a lot of people. And on mobile, we use conversion rate optimization and testing, app store optimization, and other growth techniques that you've seen before or you'll be hearing about later in this conference. But we also used a process to surgically seek out and find data to uncover our big strategic growth opportunities. And I wanted to share this concept with you because, as funny or as terrifying as the theme of this conference is, we really should be trying to grow sustainably anyway, right? I mean, we all want to build real businesses that can keep themselves afloat and have cash to plow into growing the business itself, right? We all ultimately want to be able to stay alive to keep serving our users and our customers and keep providing that the real value to society that we set out to do in the first place. And money aside, we all want to be strategic with our time and put resources on projects and on hypotheses for experiments that would have a hard-hitting impact on our bottom line. And I'm really hoping you'll be able to walk away, from this just excited knowing that knowing the power that your team already has by realizing and understanding how to approach your product and your growth problems by understanding your particular audience and addressing their special needs. And a quick warning up front. So the outcomes and the learnings that I'm sharing are 100% real, but the inputs into the math and the equations I'm showing you are not. And also, I quit BitTorrent this spring, so I'm afraid I can't discuss their current business, but I can talk about how you can apply what we learned growing BitTorrent to your product. So let's start with the master framework. I want you to walk away with a lot of stuff you can use immediately. But if you only remember one part of the session, this is what I want you to take with you. Because this is how you drive strategic informed action from data. So how do you do this? And this is going to sound dumb, but think like a really nerdy SWAT team. I think here in New South Wales, it's called a Tactical Operations Unit. Is that right? The process is basically they define their mission, which is, for example, get the package. They figure out how to reach it, they diagram it out, they figure out what they need, they go and make it happen, they get the package, they get out, it's in and out. It's all about action. And what I mean in our world is start by working backwards. Figure out what information you need to take action, then go after that information. And this will all come together after our first example, but real quickly, it's first define the question you need answered, make sure it's really narrow and clear with the next action in mind. That's the first step. Second step is figure out what the answer would look like if you had it in front of you, like on a sheet of paper, in order for you to take action. Then figure out what data you need to process to get to that. If the data exists, you'll be able to go get it. Otherwise, you're going to have to make it, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And so get the data, process it in the format you define in step 2, and you'll have what you need. So let's bring this to life. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the first example, and then I'll pick up the pace. This is about using a very simple, very common bucketing technique. In this case, used to prioritize next steps, and we'll be using survey data. So back to the story. This was roadmap planning season, and my team was asked by our execs what feature you'd be building in the next year to drive paid app revenue for Android. And I'm sure no PM ever gets that question. No investor ever asked the founder this question, show me your roadmap. Tell me what features you're going to build to make us more money, right? And looking back on it, this is why product and growth working together seems to work so well in our case, because sometimes features aren't the answer. So we took a step back and we restated the question. For us at that moment, the question asked, while still being very narrow, the narrowness helps so you don't get overwhelmed, was among these, what will drive the most paid app revenue? Price testing, adding features, or building awareness? And what bit of insight, if we had it in front of us, would point us in the right direction for that next answer? We figured it would be a ranked list of opportunities based on likely impact. It would probably look something like this. And this information would ideally come from a subset of our audience that's most likely to buy, and that would be core users, those users that really love our product and therefore more likely to buy a paid version of our free app. It would also be people in our top monetizing geos, and it would be users who pay for stuff, naturally. And so this is where a lot of product teams would just stop. They would say, the data doesn't exist, so my gut says we need to build some more features, or price testing is super easy and people are complaining about the price, so let's do that. But we, and hopefully you too, realize that you can make this data. That's the beauty of qualitative data. It can fill in where other data stops. It just takes a little finesse. So we needed to ask a pointed question to a narrowly targeted set of core users, and that's all we knew, and in my mind, that's a survey. So we ran banner ads in our top geos that pointed over to a SurveyMonkey survey. Thanks, Elena. We asked essentially Sean Ellis's product market fit question to first zero in on core users. So Sean Ellis found a qualitative way of getting users to self-identify as core users by indicating how they'd feel if the product went away. So those who say they'd be very disappointed if the product disappeared would be the ones we listened to for the rest of the survey. And we asked those core users straight up, why aren't you a pro user? Is it a pricing issue? Is it too expensive? Is it the features are irrelevant? Is it you don't pay for app upgrades and people are very proud to volunteer and say that they don't? Is it that you just didn't know about it? And it turns out that the biggest reason why our target users weren't buying Pro is that they just hadn't heard of it, which surprised us because we thought we had it everywhere, all over the app and in all the funnels. But heck, we figured we could solve for that. So rather than build a feature first, like we were asked to, we added this tiny banner ad to the bottom of our apps. We were able to get a nice bump in our revenue without building anything. Tiny change. So let's try something different. This is expanding internationally to your highest potential countries. We'll be using a process called screening and trade-off, and we'll be using databases and product data. I've done this a lot for completely new products, using just databases though, public databases, but we were lucky in this case. So our team knew that it was time to start working on translating our apps and our funnels. But unlike other teams, rather than treat the decision about what countries and languages to focus on as a throwaway decision, we decided to treat this as a growth opportunity. We wanted to pick a set of geos that were uniquely ready for us, meaning that their potential for us was big, both from a user base perspective and a monetization perspective. So the question was, what geos and languages should we prioritize? And ideally, this would be a ranked list. And the data does exist, so we decided to go get it. And so essentially, these are the categories of data you want to gather for your product. The data needs to address two things: market size and likelihood to monetize. In this case, we were doing BitTorrent for Android with a monetization model focused on advertising. We did uTorrent separately, and we did both of them for the premium product separately. And you're going to want to do this for your product and for your business model and your priorities. In this case, we were doing BitTorrent for Android with ad monetization. For market size, we used the world's installed Android user base, because if you don't have an Android phone, we can't help you. There's no torrent app for iPhone. The data was triangulated from a combination of the CIA World Factbook and StatCounter. And we knew at this particular stage of BitTorrent Android's growth, our target audience was current desktop client users for the BitTorrent product, so we used the install base for the BitTorrent desktop client. But you need to figure out what data is available that most closely addresses the available market and the potential interest for your product. For likelihood to monetize, we picked the relative value of mobile advertising by geo from a few studies. And we chose a weighting for each of these criteria based on our priorities. In this case, it was about market size and not monetization. So you see the emphasis there on the weighting. And so this is the fun part. List every country on the planet. Pick a minimum value for each of the criteria that you just laid out. And find out which of the countries meet the minimum for all three criteria. All right, so it's like this. Okay, so then you want to prioritize your final list. That'll be a lot shorter than what you started off with. So for all those countries that are in the overlapped circle in the middle, to prioritize or rank those, for each of those selection criteria, and I'll run through this quickly, you band your countries into deciles, basically translate what top percentage they fall into. So the top 10% or whatever is in decile 10, top 90% is in decile 1. Apply the weighting of the criteria to the decile to come up with the values. So that's the 3 and the 30 there as an example. And you do it 2 more times. And then you sum them up. And there you have it in the corner there, the values. So quick note, do your due diligence once you have your final list for political or economic risk. Think about adding your BRIC countries and other countries that your particular product's data seems to be pointing as having a lot of potential. We translated then to grow a few specific high potential countries, and yes, that growth was completely organic, which is my favorite kind. So, ready for more? All right, so this next one is valuable for you if you have or will have a paid version of your product, and you want to know what features paying users are most willing to pay for. So that you can maximize the likelihood of building a set of features that they'd love to buy. And we'll be using survey data for this one. Free features are a bit different. It's more centered around pain points, and we can talk about that more later. If you want to bring that up, I'll be sharing some contact information. So the narrow question that we asked was, will more users be willing to buy Pro if we release more features? Which features? And ultimately, the outcome that we're looking for is a set of features ordered by their value to paying users, which you'll later want to plug into an ROI analysis. The audience that we're going for is core users again, and our top paying geos who buy upgrades. And no, this data doesn't exist, but we knew by now not to let that stop us. So if you recall from the last survey example, the one that uncovered that opportunity to make money by increasing awareness, the second opportunity that we could go after was adding features. So, and actually as part of the same survey, we directly asked them to weigh in on the value of future features. Now, no one would, one would expect users to not care and just give random answers here, right? Especially since we're giving away t-shirts and stuff just for participating. Not to everyone, but it was a prize. Not in this case, though. There's a special technique here marked in red to get survey takers to be more honest. And I learned this from my guru in market research, Professor Park at Cornell, who uses this when consulting in the real world. Basically offer users a crack at getting the product when it's ready, and then ask them what they would want in it. Basically get their skin in the game. And rather than stating features, we stated user benefits in plain language and asked users to rate them on a Likert scale of 1 to 7, and we did not use force ranking, like it's done with card sorting exercises, because this way we'd be able to see the relative value of the features from one another. So a feature valued a 4 is twice as valuable to a user as a 2. And then there's a simple calculation to get to the relative value of each feature, which is in the appendix of this deck that's actually on this link. So feel free to jump onto that. There's the full deck. There's some bonus material as well. In the end, you'll get the relative value of your features, which you can then plug into the RO analysis when building your roadmap. My favorite thing about this was how received these features were from our core users that really felt that we were addressing their very specific needs. And our engineers' favorite thing was that these feature decisions were primarily based on data and didn't just come from someone's gut. So here's what I'd love for you to take away from this. The first framework, the Data Insights Master Framework, it's not new, but it's a really valuable habit to have. It'll save you a lot of grief. It'll keep you from getting overwhelmed when you're faced with really hard questions. Just remember to start with what you need to know next in order to take action. The research processes are tools, but only tools to get you closer to the right answer than you would have gotten to if you just used your gut. So they'll move you to being confident that you're doing the best you can with the information available, and that you're looking in the right place for that information. They're to be used directionally as well. Don't use them as a substitute for MVPs. They really just help you to be more informed when building your roadmap. Don't let lack of ready data prevent you from being data-driven, particularly where it really counts, like in your strategy. Qualitative data can help you fill in the gaps where other data ends. And also, don't overlook the possibility of other forms of data. Just know that some types are more appropriate depending on how much you understand about your problem. And think of these data processing techniques on the left as multifunctional. Across companies and across teams, I've used them in a number of different ways, and I think you can too. And think about having product and growth work together, at least in the early stages when culture is being set, and making data-driven, market-driven, strategic decisions really bear a lot of fruit on growth. At least in our case, it's set our little teams up to be talked about here. And I really hope that with all of these new tools, you'll be able to walk away feeling even more empowered and make a massive, massive impact with your team and with your product. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help you.